Chapter 3. The Vortex Offensive. The Coalition's victory at Epsilon 7 had provided a brief respite, but the war was far from over. In the command center of the Horizon's End, Admiral Caney and her senior officers convened to plan their next move. The recent intelligence reports indicated a significant buildup of Obsidian Armada forces near the Vortex Nebula, a strategic location known for its navigational hazards and resource-rich asteroids. Admiral, our scouts have confirmed the presence of multiple Armada fleets in the Vortex Nebula, reported Captain Lysander. It appears they are using the nebula as a staging ground for their next offensive. Caney studied the holographic display, her mind racing with possibilities. The Vortex Nebula was a double-edged sword. Its dense asteroid fields and gravitational anomalies made it both a formidable defensive position and a potential death trap for the unwary. We cannot allow the Armada to gain a foothold in the nebula. If they fortify their position, it will be nearly impossible to dislodge them. Commander Leora, the ground forces leader, nodded in agreement. A preemptive strike is our best option. If we can catch them off guard, we can cripple their forces before they have a chance to dig in. Agreed, Caney replied, her voice cold and decisive. We will launch a full-scale offensive. All fleets are to be mobilized immediately. Captain Lysander, you will lead the vanguard once again. Your mission is to penetrate the nebula and disrupt their formations. Commander Leora, prepare your troops for boarding actions. We may need to take the fight to their ships. The officers acknowledged their orders, and the command center buzzed with activity as preparations began. The fleet's warp engines powered up, and within hours, the Coalition Armada was en route to the Vortex Nebula. As the fleet entered the nebula, the navigational challenges became immediately apparent. Asteroids the size of small moons drifted through the void, and gravitational eddies threatened to pull ships off course. The Coalition navigators worked tirelessly to plot safe paths through the chaos, their expertise proving invaluable. Captain Lysander, we have visual on the Armada fleet, reported Lieutenant Harrow. They are positioned near a large asteroid cluster, likely using it as cover. Understood. All ships, engage at will. Focus fire on their cruisers and destroyers. We need to thin their ranks before they can coordinate a defense, Lysander commanded. The battle erupted with ferocity. Coalition ships weaved through the asteroid field, their weapons blazing. Explosions lit up the nebula as ships on both sides took heavy damage. The Armada's defenses were formidable, but the Coalition's tactical acumen and superior coordination began to tip the scales. Amid the chaos, Commander Leora's boarding teams prepared for their mission. Clad in advanced combat armor, they launched from the Horizon's End in specialized boarding pods. Their target was the Obsidian Fury, one of the Armada's command ships. The boarding pods dodged through the battlefield, avoiding enemy fire with precision. As the pods latched onto the Obsidian Fury's hull, Leora led her team through the breach. The interior of the ship was a labyrinth of corridors and bulkheads, each one potentially housing enemy forces. The team moved with cold efficiency, neutralizing threats and advancing toward the ship's bridge. Commander, we have secured the engineering bay, reported Sergeant Voss, one of Leora's trusted officers. We can disable the ship's power core from here. Do it. We need to cripple this ship and take out their command structure, Leora replied. The team worked quickly, planting charges and setting up defensive positions. As they prepared to detonate the charges, an alarm blared through the ship. The Armada forces had realized the threat and were converging on the engineering bay. Hold the line! We need to buy time for the charges to detonate, Leora ordered, her voice steely. The team braced for the onslaught, their weapons trained on the entrances. The ensuing firefight was brutal. Armada soldiers poured into the engineering bay, but the Coalition's disciplined defense held firm. The charges detonated with a deafening roar, and the Obsidian Fury shuddered as its power core was destroyed. The ship was crippled, its systems failing as fires raged through its corridors. Mission accomplished. Fall back to the extraction point, Leora commanded. The team moved swiftly, retreating to their boarding pods and launching back to the horizon's end. As the Obsidian Fury was neutralized, the tide of battle turned decisively in the Coalition's favor. The remaining Armada ships, deprived of their command structure, began to falter. The Coalition pressed their advantage, routing the enemy forces and securing the Vortex Nebula. In the aftermath of the battle, Admiral Caney surveyed the scene from the bridge of the horizon's end. The Coalition had struck a significant blow against the Armada, but the war was far from over. The Vortex offensive was a victory, but the Nexus wars continued to rage. Admiral, we've received word from Aegis Prime. They've uncovered new information about the Nexus protocol. It's significant, reported Lieutenant Harrow. Caney's eyes narrowed. The Nexus protocol was the key to the war, and any new information could tip the balance. Prepare a secure channel. I need to speak with command immediately. As the fleet regrouped and prepared for the next phase of the campaign, the importance of their mission became ever clearer. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and the Coalition's resolve would be tested to its limits in the battles to come. Chapter 4: Shadows of the Obsidian Armada. The Coalition's victory in the Vortex Nebula had provided a momentary respite, but the shadow of the Obsidian Armada loomed ever larger. In the aftermath of the Vortex offensive, Admiral Kane and her officers convened to assess their next move. The latest intelligence reports indicated a disturbing development. The Armada was mobilizing for a major assault, targeting multiple key sectors simultaneously. Admiral, we've intercepted communications suggesting the Armada is planning a coordinated strike on our supply lines and outposts, reported Captain Lysander. Their forces are spreading out, using hit-and-run tactics to disrupt our operations. Caney studied the holographic display, her mind racing with possibilities. The Armada's strategy was clear: weaken the Coalition's infrastructure, then launch a decisive assault. We cannot allow them to gain the upper hand. We need to anticipate their moves and counter their tactics. Captain Lysander, I want you to lead a task force to secure our supply lines. Commander Leora, your ground forces will be on standby for rapid deployment to any threatened outposts. The officers acknowledged their orders, and the command center buzzed with activity as preparations began. The fleet's warp engines powered up, and within hours, the Coalition Armada was on the move once more. As the fleet dispersed to counter the Armada's raids, Caney remained on the horizon's end, overseeing the operation from the bridge. The ship's sensors and communication arrays were abuzz with reports from various sectors, each one detailing skirmishes and engagements with the enemy. Admiral, we have a situation in the Typhon sector. The Armada has launched a full-scale assault on our outpost there. They're deploying ground forces and orbital bombardments, reported Lieutenant Harrow. Caney's eyes narrowed. The Typhon sector was a critical junction in the Coalition's supply network. If it fell, the repercussions would be severe. Deploy the Rapid Response Fleet to Typhon. All available units are to engage and repel the enemy. We cannot afford to lose that outpost. As the Rapid Response Fleet mobilized, Caney turned her attention to the broader strategic picture. The Armada's tactics were proving effective, but they were also revealing patterns and vulnerabilities. The key to countering their strategy lay in understanding their movements and anticipating their next steps. In the Typhon sector, the battle raged with intensity. Coalition forces, led by Captain Lysander, engaged the Armada in a fierce firefight. The outpost's defenses were pushed to their limits as waves of enemy troops and ships attacked with relentless ferocity. Captain, we're taking heavy fire. The enemy is targeting our command center and supply depots, reported Sergeant Voss. Hold the line. We need to buy time for reinforcements to arrive, Lysander replied, his voice steady despite the chaos. The ground battle was brutal, with both sides suffering significant casualties. The Coalition's defensive positions were fortified, but the sheer numbers of the Armada's forces threatened to overwhelm them. Amid the din of battle, Lysander coordinated with orbital support, directing precise strikes against enemy concentrations. Commander Leora, we need your ground forces on the front lines. Deploy immediately, Lysander ordered. Leora's forces, veterans of countless engagements, moved with precision and discipline. They reinforced the beleaguered defenders, turning the tide of the battle. The combined might of the coalition's ground and orbital forces began to push the Armada back, reclaiming lost ground and stabilizing the situation. As the battle for Typhon raged, Caney received a priority transmission from Aegis Prime. The information about the Nexus protocol was more urgent than she had anticipated. Admiral Caney, this is Dr. Aaron Valen. We've uncovered a crucial aspect of the Nexus protocol. It appears to be a key to an ancient network of hyperlanes, potentially allowing us to outmaneuver the Armada across the galaxy, Valen explained, her voice filled with urgency. This network could give us the strategic advantage we need to outmaneuver the Armada and strike at their most vulnerable points. Caney's mind raced as she processed the implications of Valen's discovery. The ancient hyperlane network, if activated, could change the course of the war. Understood, Dr. Valen. Continue your research and prepare a detailed report. We will need to prioritize the activation of these hyperlanes. This could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for. The battle for Typhon continued to rage, but the arrival of coalition reinforcements began to turn the tide. The Rapid Response Fleet, spearheaded by the Horizon's End, unleashed a devastating barrage against the Armada's ships, targeting their command vessels and supply lines. The coordinated assault left the enemy reeling, their forces struggling to regroup. Captain Lysander, how are we holding up? Caney asked, her voice calm but firm. We're making progress, Admiral. The enemy's lines are breaking and their command structure is in disarray. I recommend pressing the attack to ensure they cannot recover, Lysander replied. Agreed. All units, maintain the offensive. We need to capitalize on their weakness, Kane ordered. As the coalition forces pressed their advantage, the Armada's ships began to retreat. The once formidable assault on Typhon was faltering, their forces unable to withstand the relentless pressure. The coalition's tactical superiority and unyielding resolve were proving decisive. On the ground, Commander Leora's forces launched a counteroffensive, driving the remaining enemy troops from the outpost. The fierce combat tested the mettle of every soldier, but their determination and discipline held firm. The outpost's defenses were reinforced, and the Armada's ground forces were pushed back into full retreat. Admiral, the enemy is withdrawing. We've secured the outpost and neutralized their forward operating base, Leora reported. Excellent work, Commander. Begin recovery operations and fortify our position. We need to ensure they cannot attempt another assault, Caney replied. As the smoke of battle cleared, the significance of the coalition's victory became evident. The Armada's coordinated strike had been thwarted, and the critical supply lines and outposts remained secure. The resilience and strategic acumen of the coalition had once again proven their worth. In the aftermath of the battle, Kane turned her attention to the broader strategic picture. The information about the Nexus protocol and the ancient hyperlane network was a game-changer. If the coalition could unlock its secrets, they could gain a decisive advantage in the war. Admiral, we've received additional data from Dr. Valen. The hyperlane network appears to be linked to a series of ancient relics scattered across the galaxy. Each relic contains a key component needed to activate the network, Lieutenant Harrow reported. Caney nodded, her mind already formulating a plan. We need to secure these relics before the Armada can. Prepare a task force for immediate deployment. Our priority is to locate and retrieve these components. This is our opportunity to shift the balance of power. The officers acknowledged their orders, and the preparations began. The coalition's next mission was clear. They had to unlock the secrets of the ancient hyperlane network and gain the strategic upper hand in the Nexus wars. As the fleet mobilized for the next phase of their campaign, the resolve of the coalition's leaders was unwavering. The shadows of the Obsidian Armada still loomed large, but the discovery of the Nexus protocol and the hyperlane network had given them hope. The fate of the galaxy rested on their shoulders, and they were determined to see their mission through to the end. The Nexus wars were far from over, but the Coalition's victories at the Vortex Nebula and Typhon sector had provided a beacon of hope. With the discovery of the ancient hyperlane network, the path to victory was clearer than ever. The battles ahead would be fierce and the stakes higher than ever, but the Coalition was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The galaxy's future hung in the balance, and the Coalition's fight for survival continued with renewed vigor and determination. The shadows of the Obsidian Armada were vast, but the light of hope and resolve burned brighter than ever.